dear young people of America, do not be afraid. The deepest joy there is in life is the joy that comes from God.
Hello. All right. Welcome. So, new guest, Young Church Podcast. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexis Hull. I've been a parishioner at St. Cornelius for over 20 years now. I'm 26. I have been. I'm trying to think. Yeah. Well, I've been a big presence at St. Cornelius for a while. So when I used to go to school here, I was taken out in 8th grade. So
Okay.
I did 8th grade at Cumberly High School. Shout out to Cumberly Cubs. And then went on to Milliken. When I was at Milliken, I did my confirmation here. At the time, we had 2 different confirmation coordinators. So we had Cam Amaral, who was in charge of year 1 and youth ministry in general. And then year 2 was run by a lovely couple whose name I sadly have forgotten, which I hope they are not watching. Or no, Bridget and Paul. Sorry, I just remembered it. Bridget and Paul, yes. I don't have their parishioners here still. I haven't seen them in a hot minute. But it was their team ran year 2. And so they were the ones who were in charge of my confirmation. And then I was asked to join leadership. And I said no until I was a senior in high school. Like I did not want to be in leadership.
Took a gap year.
I didn't even take a gap year. Like I was a ghost. Like I didn't come. So like, from in high school as a freshman, we went on our year 1 retreat, and I definitely credit my year 1 retreat for the reason I am Catholic. And then, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Don't worry. And then. Later that year, I was forced against my will by my mother, Christy Hull, who many might know here around the St. Cornelius as our DRE. I was forcibly put on a bus to Steubenville West, which was in Tucson, Arizona. Ended up having a blast, and that's what I credit for keeping me Catholic. That is the retreat that definitely kept me Catholic.
Oh, that was after you were confirmed.
Yeah, no. That I wasn't confirmed yet, but I was almost confirmed. But
oh,
like
you were struggling with your faith.
No.
So, why did you say it kept you Catholic?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like trying to track
here.
here.
We're gonna have to jump into the testimony then.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Long story short, I've been involved in youth ministry. I was officially involved in youth ministry for over 7 years. I currently help volunteer with the young ones in First Communion. Shout out to First Communion. And who knows where the Lord is going to call me next.
Okay.
I have no say in it. So that's what I have learned over these years. But so backstory, all right. When I was here at St. Cornelius, I was a part of our Girl Scout troop. We had a small Girl Scout troop, and I still am very close friends with many of those girls to this day, especially my friend Abby. She's still one of my strongest best friends. The other girls, life has kind of taken us in different places, but I still love them, and I still enjoy seeing them when I do get to see them. But those were my strongest friends here at St. Cornelius. And unfortunately, little kids can be kind of mean. I was the girl who preferred to read rather than play with others and stuff like that. So few things happened here and there that like just kind of put a sour taste in my mouth when it came to St. Cornelius.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that was one of them. I have forgiven and I have moved on, and I don't blame the school or anything. I'd like to make that clear, but like it did happen. And so when I left St. Cornelius, I went to Cumberly for 8th grade. It was quite a change because I went from 7 straight years in private Catholic school to public school, and I was a very sheltered girl, and so I was my eyes were open to a lot of different things. But it definitely helped me come out of my shell a lot. And so by the time I entered high school, I had a lot of new friends from Cumberly. One of them still to this day, my friend Ryan. She's my best friend. So Ryan and Abby, both sides of the coin. And my mom put me through confirmation, and I did not want to come back to confirmation.
Oh, because it was at Cornelius too. So
I
you would see a lot of those people.
I think at first I begged her to either let me go to Hedwig's or Joseph's because I did not want to come. I did.
You begged.
I did.
Man, she was unwavering. She didn't budge at all.
She said, St. Cornelius is our church. You're getting confirmed at our church.
Hey, can you do me a favor? Just lower the mic a little bit so you can show off the iconic
like
look
that?
here.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that
Yeah,
gets
I
in
gotta
the
show
shot
off
here.
the iconic look.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Much better.
thank you. Yes. So yeah, I did not want to have my confirmation at St. Cornelius. I didn't want to see certain people again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're kind of cliquey, you know, teenagers. And I was like, oh, Mom, please. And she's like, but your Girl Scout friends are all going to do it there, so you're going to do it there. And I was like, fine, whatever. So at least I had my Girl Scout.
Wait, hold on. I just got to interrupt. We talked beforehand. This is the first episode where you told me beforehand I can interrupt you at any time just to keep you on track here and things like that. So I just want the listeners to know, like, I'm going to definitely be moving it along a little bit if we need to.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, listeners, if you're not familiar with me, you sure will be. All right. Alexis can ramble and talk about
I like leave
anything.
for like a segment like you're still talking like 15 minutes of camera just like
I don't need you here to talk with me. So I can have
it does a solo interview.
Yes,
Hey, that's impressive. I would not be able to do that. I feel like after 5 minutes I would just feel awkward and like not know what to say.
Yeah.
No, you'd be you'd be like having an inner dialogue, like totally chill.
I really would, but yeah. Well, anyway, so here at confirmation we had Kim Amaral. My leaders were trying to remember the names. It's been so long. Yeah, people, I'm 26 and that was when I was 14, so that's over 10 years ago. Which is
no, that's
crazy.
okay. You don't need to know the specifics, but you basically against your will, you did your confirmation program.
Yes. So a part of that was the year one retreat.
Okay, there we go.
And my mom, of course, being the mother she is, she was always the mom that volunteered to chaperone. And she didn't like us spending the night away from home without her there or unless she knew the people. So as soon as she heard it was like a sleepover in the woods, she was like, over my dead body. So she went up to Kim and she was like, I don't feel comfortable with Alexis doing that. And Kim's like, well, you're free to chaperone. And my mom said, oh, I'll chaperone. So she and Mrs. Schmidt, who is one of her comadre friends, and Mrs. Schmidt is one of my second mothers. And I think Mrs. Slater also as well, who was my friend Naomi's mom, and Naomi had been there too. I can't remember if she was on the retreat or not, but yeah, so they were there. And the first night of adoration came around, and I remember, without spoiling it for anybody in the future, but yes, I remember I had never been in adoration like that before, and I could actually like feel a presence in the room. And before that, when I had been in middle school, I'd had a rough time in middle school. In 6th grade, my grandma had passed away, and I loved her very much. I think like she's definitely, when I think of like soulmates, I think grandma was one of them. Like we were two peas in a pod. I am still told to this day I'm very much like my grandmother, which is either an insult or a compliment depending on how it's delivered. And then the next year, unfortunately, my mother suffered a miscarriage, so that was 7th grade. And then 8th grade, my grandpa passed away. And 8th grade, I also had to be in a new school and had to be in a new home, which was, like we had to move around and stuff. So it was just very traumatic. And in all that time, I remember that was like around the time that the awful secret of Santa Claus comes true for some people. And this is going to sound silly, but like for me, it was really like, if Santa isn't real and my parents have been lying to me about that, what else are they lying to me about? Is Jesus real? Because it felt like whenever I would pray for something, or it felt like whenever something would happen, like nothing was taking care of it. And it was like, well, if Jesus were actually real and really loved me, he wouldn't have let me be bullied and mistreated so badly. And especially in 8th grade, I was like people were nice to me and I didn't believe them, because I genuinely felt like, because of my time at Cornelius, I felt like I was a little ugly girl. I was a little mean girl, which is why the people were mean to me, because I was so ugly and mean. And here I am at Coverly, and all these people are coming up to me and they're like, Alexis, you're so pretty and you're so nice and you're so kind. And we don't get it because, like people aren't that nice here. And I'm like, I'm nice, I'm pretty. And I never like believed them at first because it was like, why would you say that? Because again, that's how badly I had been mistreated. So then I began to believe the people at Coverly, and I made some, like I said, some very good friends who made me come out of my shell, and it made me realize, like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, like I'm a pretty great person. And so it also made me angrier at what had happened, and so angrier at God because it was like, why would you allow that to happen? So because all this bad stuff had been allowed to happen, I was like, well, obviously he's not real. And so I even remember going to confession about it. I still remember Father Mike Gleason was the priest, and I confessed that I was like, I don't know if I believe in God. And he kind of laughed, and he said, that's a good thing. And I said, what? And he was like, you should be questioning if God is real or not. Just bring it to him. Just pray about it. But I absolve you of this sin for thinking that he's not real. And so I thought, okay, well, he's not that disturbed about it. So, okay. But like, again, had definitely had those doubts, especially going into freshman year of high school. So we're on this retreat, and I had felt this extreme guilt, especially over my grandmother's death. And it was because the night before she passed away, I had gone up to her and I had held her hand, and I told her, I was like, Grandma, we don't want to see you suffering. Like, it's okay if you let go. And then the next day she died. And I remember, like, at the time, I was like, oh my God, I killed my grandmother. Like, I genuinely thought if I hadn't told her that, she wouldn't have passed away. And I said, oh my gosh, like, it's my fault. And I carried this guilt from that for the longest time. Come to find out, no, it was not my fault, like.
Totally.
Clearly,
yeah.
I didn't have that much power over it. She was unfortunately going to pass away no matter what. But as a little kid,
And wait, so all this stuff's kind of happening leading up to, it's basically all the stuff you were carrying when you went to year one retreat.
Yes.
And so then in the adoration.
I was thinking of my grandma a lot. I still remember that. I was thinking of my grandma and how much I missed her and how sorry I was that I killed her. This was genuinely how I felt. Like, I felt like I had killed her. And I remember, like, just like the way I was praying, I just started getting answers to a lot of it in my head, where it was like, you didn't kill Grandma. Grandma's fine. Grandma loves you, It wasn't a punishment that the baby didn't make it. It wasn't a punishment that Papa died after.
So you started getting all of these
messages. Basically, like, not even thoughts. Messages, just like answers. Like, I would have an angry or a bad thought, and then I would have like a positive like answer to it. So meanwhile, surrounding the room were leaders, and your leaders would come around and they would place their hands on your shoulders, kind of like this. And I was quite the recipient of prayers, because I was crying, and also because a lot of the leaders of that year knew me. Joseph Schmidt, Jojo, was one of the leaders, and he's part of the Schmidt clan, and the Schmidt clan are basically all like my brothers, or my surrogate brothers, I should say, since I don't have any biological brothers. But yeah, so because of that, they were all kind of like extra nice and like, like kept an eye out and everything. And I remember somebody came and put their hands on me, and it was like I had been holding back the real ugly cry. Like, I had been holding back, and I was just feeling all this guilt and shame and upsetness. And as soon as this person touched me, like this warmth, it was like, instead of touching me, like just on my shoulders, they had hugged me. And I just felt so much better. And I just felt so peaceful and calm. And I still remember that, like that warmth. And it was just like all of the stress just kind of left my body. And I was able to just kind of like relax. And I was like, oh, this feels so nice. So I always turned when people would touch me, because I, depending on the hands, on if they were painted or not, you could tell who was, So I thought, it's got to be Jojo for sure. It's got to be Jojo putting his hands on me, making me feel better. And I turned, and I could still feel the person touching me, but I turned and there was nobody there. And I'm like looking, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, it was like instant realization. I was like, Jesus is touching me right now. Like, God is standing behind me, touching me. And I looked at the monstrance, and I just broke into tears and just started sobbing. And that was the moment my life changed. Like,
wow, that's incredible. That's a really powerful story.
Yes. And like, I remember they at the end of that night, Kim's clan used to always ask, does anyone want to share anything? And I was one of the people who shared, and I said, Jesus touched me. And I made everybody in the room cry. I still remember that. Like, even people who didn't like me were crying. They're like, that's so beautiful. But yeah, like, and my mom was
I
like,
think just a tad lower for the mic.
sure.
There you go.
Like that. Okay. So that is the moment I credit for giving me my faith in God. Like, I can be angry at the Catholic Church and leave the Catholic Church. I could stop going to church or mass or, but I can never say that there is no God, because I have been physically touched by God. And, skeptics might say, oh, you were full of emotions. It was the emotions of the thing. But it's like, no, it's not until you're in that moment and you feel it. And it's not until, again, like, you don't get peace that way just from nothing. That's impossible. And so I said, God is real. So that's the moment I credit for giving me my faith. The moment that gave me my Catholic faith was at Steubenville West.
Okay.
I still remember Father John Parks. I love this man. Father John Parks, wherever you are in Arizona, I love you so much. So he gave a talk on the love of Jesus, and one of his points in his talk was the story of St. Maximilian Kolbe and how he sacrificed himself for another prisoner, and that, he was unfortunately put into a room and starved to death. But he didn't die. Like, all the other people who were starving with him died first. And then I think after a week, the soldiers were tasked with going in and finishing off whoever hadn't died yet. And they said Maximilian Kolbe was the only one left. And instead of fighting the soldiers, or instead of, again, he had offered himself to die for this stranger. So he just lifted his wrist and allowed himself to be injected, and then died by lethal injection. And it was the way that Father John Parks, like, told the story and compared it to Jesus dying for us. He was like, Maximilian Kolbe did not have to take that man's place. Everybody was dying. He was like, everybody in those camps
So it was
dying.
a story of a saint that confirmed your Catholic faith.
No, well, like, yes, but it was the comparison of that saint to Jesus dying on the cross. And again, the way Father John Parks had described it, he was like, Jesus did not have to die for you the way Maximilian Kolbe did not have to die for that man. And yet he did, the way Maximilian Kolbe did. And in my mind, it was like, oh my gosh, Jesus loves me. Like, it was like everyone had been telling me this my whole life, and that was the moment I finally believed it. Like, Jesus loves me.
So like, you experienced the love of Jesus, and you knew God was real and Jesus was real at your year 1 retreat. Then you fast forward to Steubenville, because I thought you said that's when it made you Catholic.
Yeah.
So
Steubenville, yeah.
So like, your belief was like solidified or deepened from this story.
Yes.
How did that make you more Catholic?
Well, it wasn't even just that story. It was the whole Steubenville experience. Like, I remember,
was a Catholic conference. So that
conference,
whole experience,
the adoration on the second night, especially. And again, it was like, you can't get. I remember when adoration was taking place and they were walking the Blessed Sacrament around the room, and like later in small group, I remember one of the small group leaders was like, "This is only possible in the Catholic Church." Like,
I see.
Like that presence you feel of Jesus, you can only experience that. And I said, well, sign me up. I ain't leaving. Like, yeah, I was like,
okay. So it was like adoration at a Catholic conference that made you realize, like, the entire experience was like, this is a uniquely Catholic experience.
And then, of course, Father John Parks and a story of Maximilian Kolbe.
Yeah.
And again, just like I love that man so much because he's the first person that got me to understand that Jesus loves me. Not like just us in general, not in a general, like just very personally, he would be willing to die for me. And it was like very incredible. And so I've said, I'm like, my year 1 retreat's the reason why I believe in God, but my first Steubenville is the reason why I'll be Catholic for the rest of my life. Yeah.
So this Steubenville experience, it was the second year of your confirmation, is right before you were confirmed?
I think it was my first year. I think it was
the summer
after.
Okay.
So it was very quickly after.
So how could you have those experiences and then not be a leader your third year?
Oh, I was I'm a very stubborn person.
Really?
And when people ask me to do something, I instantly don't want to do it. Like it is a sin, honestly.
Really?
It's a
Yeah,
very
you totally
sinful thing.
shouldn't serve at church ever. Like,
Yes.
don't ever. You're not welcome. Don't serve here. Don't do
Exactly.
it. So then you'll do it.
Yes, exactly. You're like, don't tell me what to do, and then I'll, like I say it's the artist's mind. Like, you know, like I'm always rebelling. You know, but
So you
So,
were because
yes.
you were encouraged to do it and all that. You're like, I don't want to do it.
Well, the other thing too was after year one retreat, and I don't know if you guys experience this as well. You have a lot of people on their retreat high, company youth group, and so the next natural progression is I want to be a leader. I want to help people experience that. And I remember Kim had been like, we've been talking, the leaders have been talking. We think you would be a great leader, and I'd be like, no thanks, you know, like I'm good. And then the next year, Bridget and Paul, same. At the end of the year, they're like, hey, we're trying to grow our team and we think you would be a great leader. And I said, no, thanks. No, I don't want to be. And then,
Why not?
Again, laziness. People were asking me to do it, so I didn't want to do it. Another part was like, what am I going to tell people about Jesus? Like,
But
you know,
just had these like incredible experiences and you just... I'm trying to understand.
Well, I'll tell you what made me become a leader.
Okay,
So I never stopped going to Steubenville. I went to Steubenville all 4 years of high school, and my junior year of high school, I was so busy. And I think towards the end of the year,
You still sounded traumatized when you said that. You're like so
listen,
busy.
there are certain, I loved my high school experience, but there are some memories I have of junior and senior year where I go, how did I not explode into a million pieces?
You were were you like in a lot of like difficult courses?
I was in 3 AP classes my junior year. Junior year is the hardest year for high school, obviously, because SATs and stuff. I was on the golf team. I was in play
I didn't
production.
know you were on the golf team.
Yeah, I played golf.
You still golf?
Yeah, I just got back into golf.
Really?
I'm not kidding. I just got back into golf.
You got a set of clubs at home and stuff?
No, they're in my car currently right now.
All right.
Yeah, so that way it's easier.
You're like, I'm going after this.
Yeah, shout out to El Dorado Golf Course, home of the Rams. Shout out to Skylinks Golf Course, which is my favorite driving range. Shout out to Coach Jennifer, who taught me how to golf. I don't know where you are now, but I hope you're doing well.
I didn't know you were a golfer.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm pretty bad, but like I was good enough for high school girls golf, and I enjoyed my time. Some of my favorite memories from high school were golfing. I have a funny Alexis story about golfing that I'll remember for later in the episode.
Okay.
You'll probably like it.
So wait, what were we talking about? We're talking about, that time was hard. Junior year was super hard. The summer you went to Steubenville.
So towards the end of the year, it wasn't yet. I don't know if we were on Steubenville. I don't know what time of the year it was. But I remember, and again, mind you, everybody, and my mother included, had been over the years asking me to join leadership. You know, everybody. And I was always like, no, you know, like I didn't want to. And then finally it was Sarah Labato, now Sarah Cracian. I hope that is how you say your last name.
Anderson.
No, they changed their name.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
No, that's his old last name.
Oh, I see.
They now both go by, I think, Cracian, which is his Romanian name.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice name.
Yeah, it's a good name, right?
Yeah.
If I'm saying it correctly. Sorry.
Okay, so she got you into going to be a leader.
Yes. So we were talking one day, and the subject of leadership came up again. And she said something along the lines of, yeah, we talk about you and how good of a leader you would be. And I said, you what? Like, I always thought
Keep
it was...
my name out your mouth.
Well, no. Whenever people would ask me to be a leader, I thought...
that was an
it always
intrusive
thought. I always took it as like a spur of the moment. You just met me and we're talking and you think I'm a good talker, so you think I should be a leader. And I didn't like that. Or it was adults telling me to be a leader, and I hated adults because I was a rebellious teenager in my heart. Maybe not always in practice, but in my heart, I was a rebellious, angsty, artsy teenager because I was also an AP studio art. So yeah, I was a true Compass kid. So, but yeah, and it was the way Sarah was just, and I don't think she said the words like, you should join leadership, like, or maybe she did, but I don't remember it that way. Like, she just made me feel like this isn't something that we just bring up to you because we're just trying to collect numbers or we're just trying to, recruit people. It's something that we have deeply thought of and that we pray about and like genuinely think or like consider of people. And I was like, really? And so that year I just decided, I think I'm going to join leadership. And I remember telling my mom, and she was like, I'm signing you up. And like, I think she signed me up before I could even back out of it. Like, she was like, she said yes, like she gave the yes. And the other reason why I said yes towards the end of the year was because, well, that next year was going to be senior year. And in my head, I was going to go away for college. So I said, this is the last chance I'll ever get to be a leader and make it easy, Who knows like where I'm gonna go, like maybe Sonoma State.
Where did you wanted to go to like
I wanted to go to
State?
Sonoma State University up north.
It's like central
in Rohnert Park.
Yeah.
No, not so.
It's
farther north. It's
okay.
like past the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Or I guess
right,
they would say that is the Bay Area, but yeah, Rohnert Park is where my Aunt Celeste lives. And so I remember asking her, like, can I use your address to apply for Sonoma State so I can get a guaranteed in?
Sure.
And she was like, sure. And then I remember asking her, I was like, if I needed a place to crash while I was at Sonoma State University, could I crash at your house?
I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. So you finally get involved in leadership.
Yep.
But you don't end up going anywhere for college. You end up staying local.
Why are you saying it like that?
No, I didn't say it in any way. You didn't, right? You didn't.
No, I applied to exactly 2 colleges, Sonoma State University and Cal State University. I got into both. And I really wanted to go to Sonoma State. My dad said, I really don't want you to go to Sonoma State. Just stay at home and make your life easier. And who needs student loans?
Yeah, it was more expensive housing.
Yeah.
The cost was probably this. The tuition cost was the same, but
and
like
so
the
just
housing and everything.
For one reason or
traveling.
another.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't work, which was I was very sad about.
So then you stayed involved though as you kind of were like an assistant. You were on core.
So what happened was, unfortunately, Kim had to leave.
Okay.
And so she left when I graduated high school. So she was only my youth minister for 1 year. So I was a part of youth ministry before my mom was a part of youth ministry because...
Let the record show.
Yeah. Like I always said, it's not nepotism. I was here before her. So when she was thrust into the role of youth minister, she was like...
And actually, she was thrust in because it was like, Alexis is so great. I bet you her mom is probably like a decent,
Probably, yeah.
Is that what happened, Alexis?
I don't think that's how that happened. But like we could go with that story if you want. But yeah, so like my mom was like, I kind of need somebody who knows how how it works.
Yeah.
So I can get a better idea of it. So I was kind of the one helping her, like, oh, we usually do this and this and
makes
this
sense.
and blah, blah, blah. And then she was the one who came up with the core team. So I was not on the core team for a couple years, actually. People are always surprised to hear that. I was just kind of like the senior leader.
Okay.
Like I was in college. And so at that point, yes. So I was like, not to toot my own horn, but I was like one of the stronger leaders. So I tended to get the more troubled kids. So spoiler alert to anybody who was in my small group. I'm not saying you were a troubled kid if you were in my small group. However, some of you...
I'm just saying.
But anyway, but I loved all my kids. I had some really great kids over the years. Like, genuinely, I'm not just saying that. I remember most of them. Once in a while, I'll get an Instagram post from one that followed me, and I'm like,
how did your... Because at this point, you're like, you've been in leadership a few years. You've had powerful encounters with Christ. I'm sure... You're like studying a lot about the faith. You're preparing for talks. You're like, you have to be pretty knowledgeable, especially to be on like a core team. So how did that form? Because now you work at, I'm going to fast forward again. You work at Disney now.
Yeah.
How did that form your desire to work at Disney? How do you view your faith and working at Disney together? Like,
so I was a theater major at Cal State Long Beach.
Okay.
I did not know what I wanted to do. And there were a lot of different paths I had wanted to take, but I'm an artist at heart, and I don't do very well in 9-to-5s. Like I get bored very easily from doing the same thing. My soul just starts to be drained, and it's just like, it's not good. And so at first I was going to be an art teacher, and I remember I told my dad, which was the mistake. hey, I think I want to be a high school art teacher. And he said, a high school art teacher, those kids will eat you alive and spit you out. And he was like, no, you're not going to be a high school art teacher. And I said, well, there goes that dream. Like, completely crushed. My mom had to be like, hey, Ben, like, because I hadn't picked a major at that point. I was accepted at Cal State Long Beach, but I was undeclared. And she really wanted me to have a plan, like, going through. And I remember he came back like 2 days later and he's like, I've been thinking. The more I think about it, you could be an art teacher if you want to be. And I was like, well, too late now. You said I couldn't handle it. So blah, blah, blah. So, like, I wanted something that would still be artistic, but it had a chance for me to like grow some kind of quote unquote career. And in high school, I'd taken 2 field trips backstage Disney of their costume department. And both of those trips, I was like, I want to work here so bad. Like, it was so cool. And so I was like, okay, what is a degree that could possibly help me get into Disney? And that was technical theater, because I didn't want to be an actor. I love and respect my actor friends, and I think what they do is very brave, but I cannot live such a life, such an unstable and uncertain life. They live on the edge, let me just tell you that. And so I wanted to work behind the snes within.
So you do like the costume, like,
yeah. So at first I was
like
going to be in hair and makeup, because in high school I was the hair and makeup head of the department. And so I knew all about wigs and I knew about specialty makeup. So when I entered college, I was going to continue with that. But our college department, unfortunately, had a very tiny little makeup department, but they had a very big costuming department. And the costuming people were just really cool. And the head of the department at the time, his name was Michael. He ran the Cal State Long Beach costume house like a real costume house. And so they said that you could use it as on your resume as, if you worked in the costume house. Like, so like I really enjoyed that side of it. But and it was weird, because it was like my life at Cal State Long Beach was so different from my life at church, in the sense that, like, no offense to Cal State Long Beach, but some offense to some of the people I went to school with. I did not like a lot of my classmates. Like, they were very upfront about their hatred for God, and they were very upfront about their hatred for organized religion. And some of the professors even were pretty upfront about their hatred for it too. And in the theater department, again, it was just like on steroids. So it was like, ooh, like I did not, yeah. But that's not to say everybody.
Like they would just ridicule
perfect
organized
example.
religion. Yeah.
Perfect example. I was taking a class called Theater, Protest, and Social Change, which I still was not the biggest fan of that class, but I learned some things. And we were talking about theater productions, and this kid raises his hand, and this kid basically says, it's like a Catholic mass. The Catholic mass is like a theatrical production. Like, the priest puts on a costume, and the audience, like the people, the audience is staring at the stage. And I'm sitting in the back, rolling my eyes, and I'm like, I'm going to kill this man. And I'm getting ready to, like, because I've never hidden my faith. I have never hidden the fact that I'm Catholic. I've never hidden the fact that I love Jesus, and I never will. It's something you learn about me within 10 minutes of meeting me. At some point, I'm going to drop, hey, I went to church on Sunday. And you're going to suddenly hear, oh, this girl goes to church. And then once I know that you're comfortable with me hearing that, then you'll hear more and more and more. But I never hide it. And so even though people might have known I was Catholic, I don't think they understood how Catholic I was.
So that guy, when he compared the theater to the mass, was it in a derogatory sense?
It was coming across as that,
because
yes.
There's a part of me that was kind of agreeing with him. Like, there's an element of it that is.
Yes, but again, like they were saying it was fake.
Oh, I see.
Like the mass isn't real. Like, like you worship God, but it's not real. And I was not having it. And so I'm getting ready. I was like, I don't know how to defend this, but I've checked. And lucky for me, the professor at the time, I really liked, can't remember his name. He went on paternity leave like 2 weeks after that. And I did not like the professor that came in afterwards. But anyway, he stopped him and he said, hey, I see where you're going with, Catholic masses. Similar, I could see the comparisons, but it's not. It's nothing like a theatrical production. And here's why. And he said, at a theatrical production, we all agree what we are watching is fake. At a Catholic mass, we all agree that what we are doing is real and is steeped in tradition and is steeped in ritual. He was like, it's a religious ceremony. He was like, it is very different from theater. He's like, there are parallels, but he was like, but it is unethical for us as theater majors to compare, to say that it is theatrical, because again,
that's a really good response.
And I said, this man is Jewish and he's defending the Catholic faith like he was. And I was like, I love this man so much. Yes. And he did. And I remember like wilting and being like, all right, I like this professor. He's pretty cool. Cause yeah, he just kind of shut him up. Like you just had to be there.
Well, that's a really good response.
Yeah. And he said, and I kind of stopped in that class, a lot of like, you know, anti-Christian like stuff. And then I remember, well, anyway, but to get back to how I ended up at Disney, yes, like, once I graduated a semester early, and then, along the way, I also happened to study abroad for a semester in Wales, and I remember.
I have can I cut you off? I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So what you do at Disney is you help with the costume side of things to make
yes, I work in the department entertainment costuming, and
okay.
what we do is we dress the show. So anybody on stage is considered a part of the show. There are cast costumes, so that's what we think of like uniforms, and that's a different department, that's cast costuming. And there's entertainment costuming, so entertainment is any kind of performer or artist. So like think the musicians or the Dapper Dans, or, you know, Mickey obviously is the biggest star, and so as we know, he wears a little tuxedo and pants, and someone's got to
like
take care of that.
The costumes are to like draw people into a greater experience.
Yes.
There's a reason they're not in normal clothes.
Yes.
And from a Catholic perspective, there is an element, a parallel. It's not the same, but there's a parallel where the priest will dress in vestments to distinguish and separate himself. Do you happen to know why they do that? Catholic priests?
Catholic priests. From what I remember of why priests wear the vestments and the things they wear is because each one is symbolic of something. So like each one has like a deeper meaning. And so another part of it is also that like the priest is obviously in persona Christi. So during Mass he's representing Christ. So some of those vestments I know are linked to that he's representing Jesus, and so he's kind of like looking the part, even if it's still Father Jay's face and not the glorious face of Jesus.
You know, it's funny. I've been thinking a lot about how we as parishioners can dress for Mass. Like, because, like, okay, when you go to watch a theater show, you're not an active participant. You're a bystander watching the people on the stage, right? But in Mass, we're participating in it.
Yeah.
But what do we do? Like the priest is dressed, like the altar servers are dressed, like the choir sings a certain way, but then we like come in like our normal clothes and we're kind of like separate. I want to like, a part of me wants to have like parishioners wear like not vestments, because not to be the same, but like something that would be uniquely identifying, like we're in this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been thinking about, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it depends on the church you're going to, because like when I was growing up, Cornelius was definitely a little bit more formal. Like I remember, or I don't know if Cornelius was more formal, but my mother was definitely more formal. We had Sunday clothes that we were only to wear on Sunday, only to wear for church, and they were the nicest clothes. They were the prettiest
that's kind of what I'm
dresses
talking about, like the Sunday's best, you know?
Yes, and like I still try personally to wear nice fitting clothes for Mass on Sunday, but we also like, one of the things I like about Cornelius is it's a little bit more of a casual, you know, come as you are.
And the thing that I could see the problem with that is like, you know, it could start to be people are getting distracted by my Hugo Boss suit that I got on and like the nice shoes. Or you can tell, you know what I mean? And now it's like, okay.
The kids who didn't necessarily want to come to Mass by what they're wearing too.
Well, but I'm saying like sometimes I feel like the Sunday best can, if you're too like focused on yourself, that also detracts from the point of Mass. It's not about you actually. So that's why I almost want to wear like a black, like a monk. like you're just like, if parishioners came in like all black, like gown, like
I feel like it'd feel cultish then.
But I think that, I don't know why. I feel like that, like, Would it be cultish? Would it?
I think
Yeah?
it would be. Yeah.
Why?
Because again, the cult stereotype is that, the circle of in the black room,
I don't know why I'm drawn to it. Maybe that's a me problem.
That is a you problem, I think. Yes.
But if like I feel like it tracks, right? Like if we like people should come in a certain attire because their attire helps add to the experience of what they're doing. Just like when you go to a theater show, the reason they wear the costumes is because it adds to the experience of what you're watching. Well, we're experiencing the most incredible magical thing in mass. We're worshiping God. How is it that we dress for that experience? I don't think me walking into Ralph's should be the same experience as me walking into mass. Maybe I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Like, what do you think?
I agree. Like, yeah, like you should always be dressed nice for going to mass.
Yeah.
I also feel like it depends on where you're going to mass. Like,
okay.
Like some occasions feel more special than others, which I feel is a bad habit we all get into. Like every mass is actually a miracle, and we just forget that. It's a miracle that we're just so used to that, again, show up in the tank top and whatever, and we kind of forget that there's a reverent side to the mass where, yeah, it's like it isn't about you. It's also about, glorifying God, and it's not necessarily, one of my favorite comparisons of the mass is that it's like the bridal banquet, like the big wedding feast, and you don't show up in a spaghetti top, or you don't show up in, one of those beach shorts that the guys like to wear that's way too tight. It's like you want to be dressed nicely for the wedding feast, or the bride is going to come after you. And what's funny is the bride is the church. I think people always forget that. The bride is the church, and the groom is Jesus. The groom necessarily isn't always the one who cares about what people are wearing and everything, but the bride is definitely the one who's like, hey, I want everyone dressed nice for this. I want to be the nicest dressed one in the room. But also, again, if we are the church and, the congregation is the church and we are the bride, then yeah, you should be wearing your nicest clothes for it. And whatever helps you get into that. Like, obviously, you always want to dress modestly. Like, you don't want to be showing off everything for everybody. But, like, modesty, I think, sometimes has a bad taste in people's mouth. But it's, like, it's you dressing nicely for yourself and also for other people. Because, again, like, you think about, like, going to the grocery store, right? Obviously, you can wear your sweats and whatever T-shirt you rolled out of bed in, roll up to the grocery store. No one's going to bat an eye. But there are going to be some people who are like, gosh, that's slob, like man or woman. Everyone's going to think kind of briefly, there's, another slob, like just go to the grocery store.
Slob. That's crazy.
Because we're so used to it here in America. We are so used to it. It's just like, it's not seen as a big problem. It's not seen as a big deal. But again, or like a homeless person, like we're not going to judge a homeless person for going into the grocery store. But I'm sure there's some homeless people who feel very self-conscious about being dressed the way they're dressed because they have no other choice. And then you have some hipster teens walking in dressed as homeless people by choice, having no embarrassment about how they're dressed. But they have options. They can dress as other things. That always cracks me up. But yeah. But again, going into the grocery store dressed as a more presentable person, let's say just jeans and a T-shirt, people aren't going to look at you twice. They're going to just be like, oh, yeah, just another person walking in, getting some apples, But, like, mass is not the grocery store. Mass is mass. It's church. It's your chance to encounter God, like, the closest you'll ever get to God here on earth, which is consuming him. Mm-hmm. It's like, you really want to be rolling up in a, like, sweatshirt and sweatpants, like, just dress like a slob? Like, again, Jesus isn't going to, like, hate you for it. That's not his thing. But he is going to appreciate the people who are putting in more effort. He's be like, oh, that's nice. Like, they're wearing, some nice clothes to the wedding feast, versus the people who it's like, I feel like there's a quote somewhere along. It's like, like people dress their personality and present their personality in how they dress. And so they also present their feelings and in their emotions and how they dress as well. So like you think about people who are depressed or unfortunately grieving, and it's like they make no effort to change. They make no effort to take care of themselves or brush their hair or whatever. And it's like they're projecting to the world, I don't care. And that's what people think. They're like, oh, they don't care. They must be going through a hard time.
Yeah.
Well, you dress up like that to mass. What are you projecting? I just rolled out of bed because my mom is making me like show up, or my wife is making me show up. And it's like, okay, well, you're projecting that you don't care about mass, and that's the way it's coming across. So there must be a little bit of truth to it. But it's like, but if you do care, you should show a little bit of care. Maybe not a 3-piece suit, although men, 3-piece suits are pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I think what I'm getting out of this is like, I don't know. I'm trying to think theologically, like, would God appreciate it more if someone was in a suit versus not? And I think the answer is no.
Okay.
I don't think he would care more, because he can't care more because he already loves perfectly. So he can't love more. He won't love you more. Right?
No, yeah.
But I don't think even care. I don't think he'd care more. So for me, I was thinking, but it does affect my experience of God. So me coming in a suit would make me feel more reverent towards him. That's the difference, I think. You know what I mean? So like why I would put effort into attending to look good for mass or put my best clothes on, it would make the experience more real for me. More like I'm actually have to, because now as I'm preparing, as I'm ironing my clothes, as I'm picking out what I'd like, my experience of mass is already starting before I'm there. Because I'm already thinking about, I don't just roll out of bed and show up, and there's no awareness, there's no attention. The attention towards God in mass has begun 30 to 45 minutes before in the preparation for it. So I think it changes the individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
I believe in it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Nice.
Okay, so then okay, we talked about Disney, we talked about
we really didn't, but okay.
You want to talk about it more? What
I didn't even get to the part where I got to Disney, which is why it's funny, but yeah.
Yeah, well tell me so Disney and your faith, right?
Yeah.
Tell me then.
Okay. So the pandemic hit. I graduated in fall of 2019, and 2 months later, on my birthday, March 13th, I was born on March 13th. So March 13th, 2020, the pandemic hits, shuts down everything. And about a week after that, my dad walks in. He's like, what are you going to do? You know, like they've shut down all the theaters. They've shut down everything.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I had just graduated college, and my plan was to apply for Disney. Like that was always the goal, was to apply for the costume.
They shut down, right?
Yeah, and they shut down. They shut down for over a year.
Okay.
So I went out and got other jobs, eventually became a substitute teacher, had a stint at Amazon. Shout out to Amazon, LAX5.
Like delivering or what?
No, I was in a warehouse.
Oh, in a warehouse? Okay.
I was a warehouse worker. I was a pretty dang good warehouse worker. I have no witnesses to my time. All you have to go off of is my word. But I promise you, I was a very sought after employee in the Amazon warehouse. So we'll tell another story about that towards the end. But yes, that was my pandemic only job. I wasn't a fan of it afterwards. So I left that. And around the time I became a substitute teacher, I was like, my mom was definitely pushing me, and my dad especially was pushing me to maybe become a theater teacher. I was like, well, I don't want to be a theater teacher. I got this theater degree because I wanted to be a Disneyland worker, or, you know, have something within Disney, or even, you know, go into Broadway or whatever.
Not Hollywood ever.
I'd be open to it, but there's a difference between film and theater, and my heart is with the theater.
I see.
Yeah, the theater world is definitely where it's at.
Okay.
And so I think my mom was one. We were talking about it one day, and she's like, "Are you gonna apply for Disney or whatever?" Like, and I was like, "It's just they just opened, and I don't know if they're gonna be hiring because they're hiring back all these people." And my mom was like, "If you like." if you want it, you'll do it. If you don't, you'll keep making excuses, like something along that. She's gonna correct me after this watch. She's gonna be like, that's not what I said. But anyway. And so I was like, I'm gonna stop making excuses. So I applied. I looked on the website, and they had an application open for a cosmetologist, which would have been in their hair and makeup and wig department. So I was like, I still got it. I still know how to work with wigs, even though it's been a couple of years. I was like, so I applied for it. I ended up getting an interview. And then a second interview, and then didn't hear back from them. And so I said, oh, this is not good. And I had all of youth ministry praying for that first one. So then a costuming job opened up for entertainment costuming. And I said, oh, please, Jesus, please. And so like I was, so same. I had
So you applied there.
Applied for an interview and got a second interview. And had all of youth ministry praying for it too, because I really wanted the job so bad. And on March 15th, I still remember, March 15th, 2022. Yeah, 2022. I was at Disneyland. We were celebrating my birthday. It was a couple of days after my birthday, and a friend of ours had gotten us in. And I was waiting for my mom, my dad, and Natalie, my second sister, had all gone to the bathroom. So me, my two youngest sisters, Caitlin and Amanda, are sitting on a bench somewhere. So I thought, I'll open my email and check. So I opened the email and I just see the little Mickey Mouse like insignia and the Walt Disney Company, and said, congratulations. And I hadn't even finished reading it. It just said, congratulations. And I remember I screamed. I said, and Caitlin and Amanda both dropped everything. They turned to me like, who died? Like, what happened? Like, it was that intense. And I was like, I got the job. And they were both like, what? And my sister Caitlin was Snapchatting somebody. So she immediately just took a picture. So we have a photo of the moment I got the job.
That's pretty cool.
It looks like I just got proposed to. Like, that's how excited I am. And yes. And then I started in April and have been there ever since. So this April, it'll be 3 years, which is so crazy to me.
Okay.
The time has flown by and also crawled by, like, in some ways. But yes, it is my dream job. Most of the time when I show up to work, it does not feel like I'm working. I love it. I'm so thankful for it. But one of the kind of sad parts about being picked up at Disney was I had to leave the youth ministry because there was no way.
Oh, yeah, because the schedule was so
The schedule was going to be crazy. I was a little bit burnt out. Andres and my mom were leaving, and so I was like, okay, well, if they're leaving, and I just got this job at Disney, it all just kind of like worked out. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. You guys all left like at the same time.
Yeah.
Because Andres was now done with like school. He was going to be a teacher, right?
Yes.
So he was going to start his new career there. Your mom just wanted a break from ministry, and then you were now at this Disney job. So it was just like, yeah, okay.
It was crazy. I feel bad for the program, but the program's fine now. Yeah, you guys are doing good. You got a podcast now, so you're fine. But yes, so I do miss ministry sometimes. Sometimes it's nice to be able to sleep and not be stressed out of my mind over teenagers, and other times I do miss the craziness.
I guess I have what advice would you give to maybe some high school kids that are listening to this? They've kind of heard your story, especially the part where like you kind of were reluctant to join leadership. Do you wish you joined earlier? Do you think that year off was good for you?
It's more like 2-3 years off, but yeah.
I'm sure now looking back, I
think I would have been opposed to a lot more of the changes that my mom brought if I had been in the program longer, because they ran things very differently to how we ran things.
Okay.
So I didn't grow too attached to it. And the thing was, like, the thing that all of us were really aligned on when we were in youth ministry was that we were there to bring the teens closer to Christ. And we had been so fortunate to come into a program that already had a great foundation. Like, the year one retreat is all the Amarals. Like, that is all, like, their legacy. And, like, the letting go talk, that is their legacy. And, like, Andres even has so many memories of how his, like, confirmation was run and everything. It was very different. And then we came, and I feel like in many ways made it stronger. So, like, for one, they always changed the theme of the retreat. The retreat theme changed every time, but it didn't always tie into the theme. And so I remember saying, like, why don't we just do the same theme every year? Like, why do we have to change it every year? And so we came up with the 10 Commandments. And so for us, the year 1 retreat was the 10 Commandments. Well, then because we had taken over year 2, so now the program was run by the same person. It's like, okay, well, now we need a year 2 retreat. And my first year of leadership and also Kim's unfortunate last year was the first year of a year 2 retreat. And nothing really happened on that retreat. I'm not going to lie. My sister, Natalie, that was her year 2 retreat. And I remember she came home. She's like, I loved it. We did absolutely nothing. And that's why she loved it. Because they just got to be in the woods with their friends.
I loved it.
Praise and worshiping Jesus. And that was it. Like, we had talks, but not really. And like, we had like ideas, but it was our very first time. And Kim was like, it'll get better over the years. Like, we just got to build on it. Because that's what she had learned from year 1. And then she ended up, unfortunately, having to leave. So my mom took that opportunity, and Andres took that opportunity to say, your 2 retreat is ours. And they were like, they like had all these ideas, and like we kind of took the foundation of year 1 retreat, but it like made it our own, and then it became what it became. Yeah. And we're still very proud of, I'm still very proud of both retreats. You know, like I'll always have a soft spot for year 1 because, again, like I have so many memories of year 1, like from different perspectives of being a candidate and then being on leadership with Kim's team and then being on leadership with my mom's team and then being a core leader and then being the MC of retreat and then the dad joke stuff, like all that. Yeah, like there's so many sides to it that I love.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you're able to look back at it fondly, and
yeah,
it was a very good time in your life. What advice would you give high schoolers today?
In general?
Yeah, just in general. You're a high schooler today. You're listening to this podcast, you know. What advice do you think you'd give them?
Everything gets better. Yeah. Genuinely, not just because this is a Christian podcast, but you have to have God in your life, okay? Like, there are so many miserable, sad, lonely people, myself included, like in this world, all right? And a lot of that has to do because they are rejecting God. Like, and you see it. You see the people. You can spot the people rejecting God a mile away, and it's very sad. It is, and I don't want to make fun of them, but you know. And a lot of times when you're talking to people, they've got some vendetta about God too. Like they're angry with him with some reason, and it's like if you're one of those people who's angry at God, just tell God why you're angry with him, like genuinely. You know, I don't think you should cuss out the Lord, but if it helps you get your emotions out, maybe cuss around the Lord or something, you know, like, but let him know how angry you are and then let it go and then let him take care of it. That's some of the best prayer advice I've gotten from Mike Patton was like, you know, he told a story about how his wife had been diagnosed with cancer and he was so angry with God, he cussed him out. And then turns out the wife didn't have cancer. So he said, I'm going straight to confession. And in the confession, he tells, I cussed out the Lord. And the priest looks at him and is like, I'm pretty sure he was so happy when he did that. And he's like, why would God be happy I'm cussing him out? And he's like, well, I'm not sure he was happy about you doing that. But it's the fact that for once you didn't hide your emotion from him in prayer. Like you were genuine. You just told him straight up. You weren't trying to BS him. Mm-hmm. You just told him you were angry with him. And what happened after that? Your wife didn't have cancer. You know, like it all worked out and everything. But like now you know. And that really helped change the way I pray. And so I feel like when I'm angry with God or I'm upset with God, I tell him, like, I am so frustrated with you right now. I know you have a plan. I know it's going to work out, but I don't like how this is going right now.
Yeah.
So I would say for teens, if you're confused or if you're angry, don't just bottle it in. It's not going to help. It's not going to go anywhere. Just bring it to God. Just tell him why you're angry.
So I ask a question lately at the end of every podcast. You kind of already touched on it right now, but maybe you can give me a slightly different answer.
Okay.
Why Jesus?
Why Jesus?
Why Jesus?
Why not Jesus?
Yeah. I think KK said the same thing.
Really?
I think she said the exact same thing.
Great minds
you can
think
answer.
alike.
You can answer that however
Why
you'd
Jesus?
like, whether it be personally, whether it be generally.
Jesus makes so much sense. Like, just like when you compare other religions to each other, again, Jesus really is radical in how he's teaching about love. But he's not hippie Jesus either. I feel like I don't like when people make Jesus out to be the guru who's like, oh, just love your enemy and turn the other cheek and we should all just hug each other and pray. It's like, okay, Jesus, Jesus still wanted people to like defend the innocent too. Like it's I don't know theologically where this is, but I know it's unethical to let innocent people just stand by and get killed. And so Jesus would tell you like, okay, you gotta go protect them, like stuff like that. So, but Jesus also like brings a peace to your life that cannot come from anywhere else. Like it's literally impossible to get that kind of peace except from Jesus. How do you know, Alexis? Well, it's because I myself have experienced that peace before. Like there are certain times in my life when I think about like where I've been touched by God. The most radical time was when I was 14, but like there's been other times too. Like I remember there's like a couple memories I have in Wales where I remember feeling the presence of God. There's a very favorite memory of mine that's just me, myself, and I in college, and I remember feeling the presence of God. I think most recently, last year, I remember going to Mass. I had been having a hard time last year. I hadn't gone to Mass in, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks, and it was pretty bad. And the first time I went back to Mass and I took the Eucharist, I remember asking, I was like, God, forgive me. I swear I'm going to confession right now, but I really need some Eucharist in me. And I got some Eucharist in me, and I almost broke down sobbing on my knees, because like the presence of God was so physical. And it was like, oh, this is why I'm Catholic, because gotta love that Eucharist. But yeah.
Oh, that's a good one to end on. Thank you, Alexis.
You're welcome.
I'm going to close in prayer.
Okay.
In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy
Spirit.
Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you. We thank you for the Eucharist. We thank you for just the ability that we have to be close to you. We just want to say we love you. We thank you. I just ask for whoever's listening to this podcast that they also just open their hearts to receive your love, so that you may bring them peace and joy. We ask all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.